Alright, now that I've put out a good few videos since my main source of channel views, I'd say it's time to milk that sweet, sweet Warhammer cow yet again. And oh boy, if my last video didn't piss off enough people, this one certainly will. I'm joking, well, mostly. A large majority of people in the comments were very kind, and regardless, the feedback was definitely appreciated, and of course the views as well. So, a few things I'd like to clarify before we get too deep into this ranking. 1. In this video, I'll be ranking all currently playable factions in Warhammer, including the recently released Voten, because I don't want this video to get outdated too quickly. 2. I'll be ranking all playable Space Marine sub-factions separately at the end, while having the Space Marines as a whole ranked alongside every other faction in ascending order from least favorite to most favorite. Also worth noting that yes, I have now learned my lesson. Custodies are not Space Marines. The point I was making in the video is that they are aesthetically very similar, but, you know, hey, don't worry, in this video, I will be ranking them separately from Space Marines. Grey Knights will be ranked separately as well. 3. This video will inevitably piss off any and everyone watching this video, but just know that even if your favorite faction is at the bottom, that it's not your fault, or really even my fault. It's actually Games Workshop's fault for not supporting them enough to make me like them more. No, in all seriousness though, I love pretty much every faction in the game, so automatically every faction is probably like a C tier for me, but rankings will simply be based on personal opinion of armies I prefer the aesthetic to or would collect over others. As mentioned a few times to people in comments or in live streams, I simply can't really decide on a singular army. My favorite or the one I want to collect pretty much changes every week, so don't take my rankings as something that's too serious or concrete. 4. Finally, this will mainly focus on factions' models and aesthetics, not worrying too much about the playstyle. Lore will be brought up in a discussion when possible, but keep in mind, far from an expert on the lore in some factions, I have little to no familiarity with from this perspective. I'm also going to try to set aside my personal bias when I feel it's appropriate, but yeah, we'll see how well that promise holds true.
My. I smell a demon.
Sorry lads, but you guys are going to rank very low, and not only 40k, but AOS as well. What a shame to be bottom of the tier in not one, but 2 franchises. Alright, so this is going to be kind of a clusterfuck to try to rank. I'll split up all the demons based on their chaos gods, mostly because they have a wide range of themes and even wider degree of quality, and to be honest, I'm not sure that you can really even play them together. The new codex just dropped in or whatever, and I don't really know the rules anyways, but just know I'll be ranking them separately, and they'd fall relatively still in the same area on this tier list, even though they are going to be kind of split up.
I came looking for booty.
For those of you who watched my anime video, you probably know I don't really like sexual content in a lot of things, and that should honestly tell you all you need to know about my opinion on these goons. Most of their models just make me uncomfortable, and yeah, I know that's kind of their goal, but that still doesn't really change my feeling towards them. Nurgle makes me a bit grossed out too, but sometimes with Slaanesh, I just don't want to look at the models, what few of them there actually are. If you're a fan of sexualized degeneracy, these bad boys are going to be the design for you for sure, and to be fair, their models are actually really well designed and high quality. Good shit, design team. Overall opinion, they do their job too well. Favorite model? Dami Mommy / Daddy.
Cone.
The Khorne fans are probably going to be angry about this one, but to be honest, when aren't they angry? That's kind of their whole shtick. Khorne is actually pretty cool though. In all honesty, Slaanesh is the only one I actively really dislike, but these guys are pretty neat. My main criticism is that they're honestly just not well supported, which is a bit of a bummer since I think I might like them even more than my next pick if they were. Yeah, their overall color scheme and theme is a bit one note, but again, that's just what Chaos does, and to be honest, that's what most factions in the game do, so I can't really knock them for that. From a lore perspective, I got nothing, I'm going to be completely honest. Maybe it's because I haven't explored too much of the right lore, but Khorne really ain't be doing too much from what I've seen other than just taking credit for people dying. I don't know, the World Eaters revamp should hopefully bring a bit more interesting shit to Khorne, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Overall opinion, has potential, but a bit underwhelming. Favorite model? Dog.
Oh, you nasty ass bastard! You fucking nasty!
Everybody's favorite disease-ridden monstrosities. Man, I love the idea of Nurgle. He's just a big old guy who loves everyone because everyone gets sick. Now, this is a problem with pretty much every Chaos army, but these guys have almost no models. 10 is a pretty sad amount, but what they do have, I think, are pretty good. This might seem entirely antithetical to what I just said. My main withdrawal from these guys is that although they are designed very well and pretty unique, they're also fucking disgusting. Like, I really don't want to look at them, but they're done so well, I have to give them props. Kind of like Slaanesh, but I like the theme here more. Overall opinion, makes me want to vomit. Good shit. Favorite model? Gary from SpongeBob. Yeah, Tzeentch is probably my favorite Chaos God by far. Maybe it's because I like the color blue or the idea of this master schemer who's pulling all the strings across the galaxy, but it's just something about him, man. Now, the Tzeentch models have two modes, big dick or fucking atrocious. Some of their models, in my opinion, are absolutely amazing. My favorite out of all the Chaos Demons by far. And then they have these weird things with a lot of mouth shooting fiery looking shit. And then the blob, the wee looking shit. What is going on? Really hoping not only these guys, but all the Chaos Demons get some more love. But hey, maybe it won't earn them enough money. Overall opinion, oxymoronic quality, but maybe that's what Tzeentch wanted. I don't know. Favorite model, Big Bird.
No one understands me. Dark, dark, dark. My mom is a bitch.
Sorry, emo kids, these guys are ranking pretty low. Go cry about it if you aren't crying already. Alright, I'm just kidding. These guys actually look pretty sick in all honesty. I think the easiest blanket statement I can make about them is that their theme simply isn't for me. I know this is like a grimdark setting and everything, but don't you guys think you're taking it just a little bit too far? From the little bit I've heard about their lore, yeah, not a big fan of the whole torturing people thing, so missing appeal from that perspective, but positive note, they actually have some pretty interesting vehicles. Space pirate ships are actually kind of sick, so big props there. Other than that, yeah, not really much else to say. They just aren't for me. Overall opinion, 2 spooky, 5 me. Favorite model, Illidan.
Damn, boy, he's thick. Boy, that's a thick-ass boy.
Man, I find it really hard to critique knights in all honesty, because just from an objective point of view, they're definitely fucking sick, but I personally just feel very indifferent towards them. Lore-wise, I know pretty much nothing about the knights, and to be honest, from what I've heard, their lore is comparatively lacking, but that's just from what I've heard from, like, 2 people. Please don't crucify me if I'm wrong there. And although I completely understand that there exist an audience of people that love these huge, hulking behemoths, personally, this really aren't for me. I know I just said I wouldn't focus much on their playstyle, but from everything I've heard, their playstyle on the tabletop seems very one-dimensional. Kind of side note, kind of not. One thing you're going to notice throughout this ranking is that vehicles are not for me. They tend to lack personality in most cases, and I think that mechs are significantly core and have more personality in vehicles, but they still lack as much personality as most troops, in my opinion. So for me, a whole army made specifically of mechs, much like their playstyle, is just a bit too one-dimensional to really grab my interest. If you're a big fan of mechs, though, oh hell yeah, this shit is definitely for you. And hey, I like mechs too. All my Titanfall fans, where you at? Personally though, I feel like the Tower are more appealing for me from this perspective, as they seem to offer a bit more variety on what you can take and mix into your army. Overall opinion, they're alright. Would be cool to see one in person. Favorite models? For the Imperial, Knight Paladin. For the Chaos, Knight Desecrator.
You're disrespecting a future U.S. Army soldier.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, guard players. I know Game Workshop bullies you enough it is. But I am a man of honesty, and honestly, these guys could use some fucking improvement. The unfortunate reality is that guard could be cool. Games Workshop just doesn't seem to give a fuck about them. Personally, don't get too offended. I just think Cadians are so damn boring. And of course, this is the sub-faction Game Workshop supports the most. That is when they decide to throw guard any slightest bit of attention at all. For me, I'd love to see any other sub-faction of guards get some more love, as I'm guessing a lot of other guard players would as well. Krieger, easily my personal favorite, but I know there are a lot of great regiments out there that haven't gotten a love in a very long time. Also, remember that little issue I mentioned like a little bit ago about not liking most vehicles? Well, oh boy, do guard have some vehicles, and not just vehicles, very boring, comatose-inducing tanks. I'm sorry for all the tank enjoyers out there listening, but man, I just cannot get behind a box of metal as a design, and they look so damn similar, all of them. Overall opinion, lots of potential, but disappointed. Also, fuck tanks. Favorite models, full bias, veteran guardsmen. Slightly less bias, Tempestus Scion and the Shield Boys.
I'm dying. Help me.
Sorry, Magnus. You aren't going to be able to carry these guys up any higher. First thing I want to say is that I genuinely like the Thousand Suns. They definitely got some interesting stuff going on in the lore of that whole disintegrating into energy or whatever the fuck is going on over there, but I think their ranking on the list definitely just does boil down to personal preference. The Egyptian aesthetic is a pretty unique thing to pull off, and I think they do it well, although they have some pretty tough competition with the Necrons. Their playstyle honestly sounds kind of cool. I'd definitely be interested in playing them. What holds them back? I don't really know how to put this, but the hats are just dumb, man. Like, I know exactly what they're going for with the design. Egyptian theme, right? Like, makes sense. but I just can't get over the giant block of stone perched on around half of these guys' shoulders. And some of them look cool. I think some of the headdresses are pulled off very well, but goddamn, I just cannot bring myself to get over the giant rectangles on their helmets. Another thing I'm not a big fan of is the color scheme, but honestly I could get past this and paint them a different color. But Jesus man, these guys need a fucking haircut. Overall opinion, cool idea, questionable execution. Favorite models, Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law.
What? That's insane! That's a bug! That's a bug! That is a bug!
Somebody grab the raid, because these bugs be crawling and evolving. Now I'll be honest with you guys, Tyranids are pretty alright. Nothing crazy, but not bad either. One of my friends plays them, and I know he's very likely watching this, so I can't shit on them too much. Main downside, they got like no lore, which is kind of given when your whole thing is being big aliens that eat stuff. But you know, I don't care too much about the lore, so what else they got? Well, through no fault of their own, their models are fairly outdated, but some do hold up fairly well. I truly feel that if I got a big range refresh, they could bring in a lot of new players to start getting more into the army, myself included. With some of their models, they do have a bit of a problem of inching towards the gross outline, but overall I think that's more of a cool type of gore than a gross type of gore, if that makes any sense at all. Overall opinion, old but gold. Favorite model, Calamari.
Don't fuck with me! I have the power of God and anime on my side! Wait,
Speaking of loving tentacles, we've got everyone's least favorite weebs. Yeah, I know, I put knights near the bottom of the list, but to be fair, these aren't that much higher. I don't know, they just appeal to me a bit more. I mentioned being a big Titanfall fan earlier, and I think these guys really encapsulate that look for me. But from a 40k player's perspective, I can totally understand that these look a bit out of place, especially compared to something like the actual knights. Other downsides, I think the strongest one for me is their playstyle. I know I said earlier that playstyle wouldn't have a strong influence over the rankings, and although it isn't like a super strong factor as to where I'm ranking these guys, it is a huge factor to me when I'm really deciding if I want to pick up their models. For those who don't know, Tau unfortunately are very well known for being unfun to play against, thriving on avoiding confrontation and fighting their enemies from very far away. And this isn't a dig at Tau players, I'm sure they're very nice, it's unfortunately just the playstyle that the army promotes. Not to mention that shooting phase is probably my least favorite combat phase. If I really had to choose one, it's not really that big of a deal, but it just kind of adds to a list of factors going against these guys. Unfun to play against and unfun for me to play just really pushes me away from the army as a whole. But hey, I did rate these guys a decently middle of the pack, right? So what do I like? Well, for starters, I really do like their models, but I do understand the criticisms against them. From an unbiased perspective, the models are fairly new, and I think that generally speaking, look pretty clean. I'm not the biggest fan of the blue boys, but contrary to what everyone else thinks, I don't think the Smurfs are too bad. Also, crew are big dick. Wish they got some more support, but other than that, I don't have much else to say. Overall opinions, lots of cons, and by cons I mean anime cons. Vengeance. Favorite models, Gorilla Groot and Rocket Man. Oh, Space Elves, another army people love to hate. And to be honest, for a while I wasn't a huge fan either, but they've definitely grown on me. I know a bit about the Eldar lore, but haven't really looked into it beyond a very surface level. But I've heard decent things. Nothing crazy, nothing bad though. More importantly though, looking at their models, pretty alright. For the craft world stuff more specifically, I'll get to the Harlequins in a moment. Definitely got a few sick-ass centerpieces, and a lot of their basic troops and shit look pretty cool. They've got some outdated stuff as well, but overall, I don't think it looks too bad. Some of their helmets look a little odd, but even then, I still like them in an odd way. Other than that, I think the Eldar are pretty alright. Some of their spaceships fit into that I could really give a fuck category of vehicles, along with pretty much all of their vehicles, to be honest. The elf heads are just not that good, and luckily these ugly bastards wear helmets most of the time. But lastly, I've got one final dunk on these guys. Harlequins. Originally, when I was ranking these lists, I put Drukhari and Harlequins together since I thought they were played pretty much together all the time, but in my minimum research on GW's site for this video, I found they were grouped into the regular Eldar category for some reason. And turns out they can be played with both. Either way, Harlequins would go down at the bottom of the list if I ranked them separately. Demon players rejoice. Killicons in space are just not my jam. Overall opinion, Chrome Domes for the win, Joker ripoffs in a bin. Favorite models, Grillmaster Supreme and Lightbulb Boys. If I had to pick a Harlequin, this guy's pretty alright.
I'd be crying if I look like that too, bro. That's fucked up what they be doing to y'all.
When I first started getting into 40k, I actively hated this faction. but somehow they've worked their way up to earn a bit of my favoritism. Maybe it's because I usually like rooting for the underdog since literally no one ever seems to play these guys, or maybe because I like the whole industrial mining theme they've got going on. Either way, they've earned a special little place in my heart. Do they have some stupid stuff going on? 1000%. Model-wise, these fuckers' foreheads are blindingly awful, and if I had to play them, I would actively work to make sure these things weren't that visible. Their vehicles are semi-interesting too, I suppose. Kind of just cars with some mining stuff on them, but, you know, better than another fucking tank, so I'll take it. Their playstyle also sounds really interesting, so I'd honestly want to try them out for that alone. Overall opinion? Unique army. Maybe even cool if you ignore the foreheads. Favorite models? Under the Sea Mini Goros and the Construction Workers.
This world is imperfect.
What?
If only I could wipe away the impurities.
Does anybody else listen?
The Poster Boys rank at a solid number 10 on my list. Some people would definitely disagree with this, but all in all, in my opinion, they rank pretty well. Obviously worth noting again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that every main Space Marine sub-faction will be ranked after this main list ranking. This is just ranking Space Marines as a whole. Some people might be surprised by this spot, considering how iconic they are for the 40K franchise. Others might be surprised I put them as high as I did after I kind of dedicated a whole entire section of my previous Warhammer video dunking on them. I think that's important to remember yet again that although they are number 10 in the ranking, I still love Space Marines. Lore-wise, Space Marines are definitely the best. Absolutely no competition. Now to be fair, there's a reason for this, which is a downside I'll talk about later, but yeah, overall, definitely the faction that probably gets the most people into the game. Considering Space Marines get models almost every week, it seems, it's pretty safe to say that their models are pretty spiffy looking. And that's excluding all the amazing shit they put out for Horus Heresy. This leads me into my first point against them, that being their bloated amount of units. GW has a huge boner for pumping out Space Marines, which on paper sounds great until you realize that they have over 100 units, not including Forge World and faction specifics, with half of them looking the exact same outside of minor alterations. While some factions in 40K take quality over quantity, or some take, well, neither. Space Marines went hard on the quantity over quality. This leads to, again, widespread homogenization of units as well as a lot of fucking tanks. Not only tanks, but flying tanks. But yeah, other than that, pretty great. They also have a bunch of lore pumped out for them when a lot of other factions don't really get that sort of treatment, which is a bit of a bummer. So hopefully the other factions are fleshed out a bit more lore-wise. Overall opinion, popular for a reason. Favorite units? Space Nerd and the Token AdMech unit.
Look what they need to mimic a fraction of our power.
The Golden Janitors. Ha, what a visually appealing faction. One of the color schemes that obviously isn't super unique in media, but much like everywhere else, works so damn well. The Custodians as well as the Sister of Silence people sometimes run alongside them are all amazing models. The Sisters of Silence, in my opinion, could maybe use a bit of a change in hairstyle, but I'll let that slide. Initially, I did have these guys ranked higher, but after looking at their models, they do tend to suffer the traditional Space Marine problem of all their models looking very similar. This unfortunately isn't helped by the fact that they barely have any models in the first place, and that of course some of these models consist of, you guessed it, tanks, so yeah, options are pretty slim. Overall opinion, great aesthetics, but much like the opinion of most Hollywood producers, needs more diversity. Favorite models? Ornstein and Smog. Smog. I don't know.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Space Marine's significantly edgier counterparts have won out this pretty easily in my opinion. Model-wise, CSM have some great diversity, a whole lot of models to choose from without being bloated by their Emperor meat-riding counterparts. They also have this giant dragon and monster-looking things, which, in my opinion, look fucking sick as shit, as well as this weird corn tank with a penis rocket, which is a tank, but it also looks so fucking stupid that I think it's unique enough to not fall into the standard tank category. They also avoid having all their actual Marines looking the same because of the wacky chaos influence shit they've got going on. Abaddon the Despoiler is actually a pretty decent centerpiece, although not my favorite if we're comparing all of them to each other. Still pretty good. I don't have too many complaints, other than I wish some of the other sub-factions had a bit more support, even if I personally like the Black Legion. Overall opinion, metal as fuck. Favorite models? Pizza Oven and the Giga Chad Genestealer Colt.
I, Arthur, was to carry Excalibur. That is why I'm your king.
Listen, strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government.
The superior knights in 40K. In all seriousness, I'm not gonna lie, I have a stupidly high bias for the knights. The more I learned about Grey Knights, the more they grew on me. I've been avoiding bringing up lore, but after exploring it a bit more myself, I found it to be insanely enjoyable, at least for these guys. I've always been interested in psychers, so in general, a whole army of Giga Chad walking trash cans bending the spawn of chaos to their knees is just too sick of a mental image to ignore. Downsides? Alright, so you know how I just talked about the Space Marines kind of sucking because a lot of the units look the same? Well, yeah, Grey Knights have the same thing going on. And they have tanks that they can field, and the infamous baby carrier. Okay. Goddamn, I really wish I could put the Grey Knights higher, but good God, they need a range refresh. Most of their models do look the same outside of weapons and shit. Plus, they really have no centerpieces unless you want to count that Dread Knight, which, no. Overall opinion, heavy bias, these would be very high up. However, models cripple their potential hard. Favorite models? Dude with the Darksaber. Your average Warhammer tournament player, after popular demand, has gotten their own faction. The stinkiest fuckers in the history of mankind were finally burst on the Horus Heresy, and let me tell you, they look pretty sexy doing it. Out of all the Space Marine models and their subfactions, and the Chaos Space Marines and their subfactions, the Death Guard easily have the most personality. Despite all their models looking similar with their color scheme and armor, Nurgle has done well corrupting these slimy fucks, as each model in their lineup has very unique features. Some of these models have some amazingly distinct silhouettes, and a lot of their weapons aren't really seen anywhere else in the game. And the cherry on top of all of this is that Death Guard have easily, if not the greatest centerpiece in 40k with their Primarch Mortarion. God damn. The one downside I would say the Death Guard have is that they are generally pretty gross sometimes. It's a bit off-putting even for me, and their vehicles are unique, but overall just not for me. Overall opinion, chef's kiss, but with a safe distance and maybe a separate room away from them. Favorite models? Mothman and this Bell guy specifically.
You're sinning right now.
No, I'm not, motherfucker. You fucking accuser. Get the fuck out of here, you fucking accuser. You motherfucking accuser. Get the fuck out.
If your crazy religious ex was an army. At first I was like, you know what? These guys are pretty alright. Their hair is kind of whack, but whatever. Flash forward a bit, and later as I'm browsing their models online, and goddamn, they have done it. Interesting tanks. Whole ass dioramas as centerpieces. And of course, what the Grey Knights, Red Knights should have been. Wow. The aesthetic of the Swordist definitely isn't for everyone, but if full out religious zealotry is your thing, you're in for a treat. And even if it's not, I think it's hard to admit these models aren't fucking incredible. Now, of course, some of their models are a bit outdated, and personally, some of their stuff is a bit too depraved for me, but yeah, that's grimdark for you. Overall opinion, batshit crazy in the best ways possible. Favorite models? This one vehicle from Despicable Me, The Rise of Gru. And Neon Genesis Space Nungelion. Call it recency bias, but I'll have you know I have always loved dwarves. But yeah, I am pretty biased. For the people mad that the newest army in the game is so high, just know the only reason they aren't first is because they're the newest army and only have like 10 models. Now, were the voting perfect? Nah. Their vehicles provide some nice scale, and I do think their overall fit their astronaut kind of Terran theme, but as you know, it takes a lot for a vehicle to impress me, and although they do have some personality, they don't hold a candle to some of the other armies in my opinion. But their actual dwarven models, that's why they're here. Cybernetic infused berserkers, an engineer with a squad of drones, mecha dwarves on stilts, and of course, the Space Wizard. Lore-wise, they seem like they might have some fairly interesting stuff going on as well, offering a different take on humanoid-like species that is going to be a bit more grounded and rational than stuff the Imperium Man has going on. But I guess we'll have to wait to see what crazy immoral shit they've got going on behind the scenes first. Overall opinion, rockin' stone to the bow. Also, eager to see more of their models. Favorite models? Gandalf and the Gunner from Deep Rock. The Egyptian robots. Not gonna lie, when I first started getting into 40k, I wasn't a big fan of Necrons. So the warriors, I thought they were all kind of just a bunch of boring walking Terminators. Who gives a fuck, right?
Wrong!
The more you look at the Necron models, especially the newer ones, the more you realize how insanely well done most of their models are. Although some units in the Necron share similar characteristics, almost every single one is entirely distinct, breaking the common issue faced with a lot of armies. A variety of weapons, weird, insane-looking Tesseract things, a giant electric alien as a centerpiece. The Necron's got some absolutely crazy stuff going on, and I feel so ignorant for looking over them before. Overall opinion, insane versatility and quality. Favorite models? 8-bit Psyker and the random Warframe character.
So is it any wonder people are afraid of technology?
Technology!
Man, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this was a pretty tough call. Originally in the list, AdMech were at the top of the armies, and in many ways, they still are. I love the idea of the Mechanicus, these tech-obsessed weirdos praying to the spirit of all machines. The representation of them is a mesh of tubing, cogs, and valves thrown together to achieve some sort of enlightenment. It just works for me. Unfortunately, as I took a step back to examine their models, put down some of my biases, I realized they had a lot of problems some of the other armies I complained about earlier had. A lot of boring vehicles, some units that I didn't really love, like the Electro Priests. They had some amazing units, to be fair. Belisarius Call, literally all of the Tech Priests, the Raiders. Goddamn, if it weren't for these giant, pointless vehicles, they'd definitely be at the top for me. Honestly, I think I enjoy the concept of the Mechanicus more than anything. So although I love the army, until they get some more units, especially like some interesting vehicles, maybe, I just don't think I could put the AdMech at the top of the list. But you know what? They're pretty close. Overall opinion, one of my favorites. Favorite models? Bell Bottom and Lancelot.
It's Queen. It's Queen.
The Green Tide, the boys, the first place army on the list. Now, a lot of the top 5 to 7 picks on the list were pretty hard to choose from, and a lot of changes were made before I landed here, but boy, do the orcs feel at home right here. For starters, because of their usual heavy reliance on RNG, orcs aren't a hyper-competitive army most of the time. Mix that with their somewhat goofy theme, and you build a subset of 40k players who are usually just there to have a good time. Out of all the dumb, stupid, toxic bullshit that can happen in the 40k community, it seems like the orc players are the shining beacon of hope for all to look to. And of course, the models. Y'all know what I'm about to say. Interesting fucking vehicles. Especially this shit. This is amazing. Most of them are just giant scraps of metal, but you know what? It works. Finally something with some goddamn personality. And if we're really talking about personality, goddamn, their units breathe it. Now, of course, I'll address the elephant in the room. Some of their models are stupidly outdated, but it seems like they're slowly beginning to be updated, especially with the release of the Beast Naga Orcs, bringing squigs and new primal hunter theme into the mix, which I'm definitely here for. You know, maybe this was a safe pick, but I think it's for good reason. They've earned it. Overall opinions?
It's Queen.
Favorite models? Killrig, Attila the Hun, and Ferrator. Oh, you thought we were done. I wish. Alright, let's make this quick. Space Marines, ranked with heavy bias. Raven Guard, too edgy, too avian, kinda works though, can't hate too much. Favorite model? Their only model. Ultramarines, nothing inherently wrong with them, just seen too much of them, like salt and pepper on food. Good, but predictable. Favorite model? Robert. White Scars, I like their overall theme of Mongolian-inspired force, not a huge fan of their color scheme. The yellow thrown in there feels a bit too cartoony for me, for some reason. Also, they have almost no unique models besides this one character. Favorite model? Genghis Khan. Imperial Fists. Honestly, only this high because one of my friends plays them and I think has subconsciously convinced me that I like them. Also, mining stuff's cool. No unique models besides a single one. Yet again. Favorite model? My only option, I guess. Death Watch. They look cool, I suppose, and hey, at least they have a few unique models. I know nothing about them lore-wise, so I'm putting them here out of community expectations, not because I think they're all that great. Favorite model? My grandpa. Black Templars. I appreciate the fact they have some fairly interesting stuff going on, and it seems lore-wise, and have some actual unique models. Overall, I think the sisters still do Space Zealots better. Favorite model? Emo Lumberjack. Dark Angels. Not a huge fan of their color scheme, but it sounds like they got some cool stuff going on in lore-wise, so I'll take it. Also seems to be well supported with some truly unique models. Favorite model? The guy with a normal arm, and then that arm. Iron Hands. Literally no unique models, only the upgrade kit. I just like the idea of them, but if you want the theme and shit lore-wise, just go with the Mechanicus for now, I guess. Hey guys, it's sick me editing this video at 1 a.m. And apparently, they actually do. So I was fucking wrong, and it ruined my whole bit. Thanks a lot. Favorite model? So in tier was the part where I was gonna like put the upgrade kit, but they kind of hid the unique model on the website, and I was gonna be like, oh, I got you, fix your shit, Games Workshop. But now I can't, because they fucking got me. Why'd they hide it like that? I don't understand why they would do something like Blood Angels. Cave Vampires? Hell yeah. Favorite model? Great value Stormcast Eternals. Salamanders. Almost no unique models, but how can I talk shit to someone who's so nice? Color theme and style that is pulled off very well in my opinion, and the unique models they do have both look really great. Favorite model? Little Vulcan. Space Wolves, either the most fleshed out Space Marine chapter. Viking stuff is fucking sick, furry stuff, hit or miss. They do well enough to distinguish themselves from normal Space Marines, unfortunately, unlike all the other chapters. Models are full of character and, generally speaking, very well done. Favorite model? Viking Santa Claus. And that's the ranking for you. I'm currently looking at like 30 minutes of editing right now, or like a 30-minute clip, so we'll see how long this ends up being, but either way, I appreciate you sticking all the way through, and I hope you enjoyed. I know people have been wanting a Warhammer video for a while, especially since it's pretty much the main reason my channel has any sort of traffic, but I've just been trying to diversify my content a little bit more. I don't want to only be known as a Warhammer channel, despite me liking the franchise a lot. But either way, I just appreciate everyone's support. Speaking of support, I'll plug my Patreon here, I guess. I'd also like to shout out Mads for being my one and only patron. Really appreciate you, man. It's only $5 a month, which I guess is a fair amount. I'm trying to push out some unique content on there as well, but if you feel like maybe that's too high, let me know. If you'd like to see some other content on there, let me know. I do have a poll going on over there if you do become a patron to let me know what you'd like, and you can also reach out to me on there anytime you want. Either way, appreciate you sticking around, appreciate you supporting, appreciate you commenting, liking, disliking, yelling at me in the comments. It's still amazing to me. Thank you all for tuning in, and take care.